Welcome to the deep dive, number 103, your essential shortcut into the fascinating and, ever-evolving world of aviation solutions.
Certainly is evolving fast.
Absolutely. So today we're taking a whole stack of recent insights, everything from critical business restructuring and really ambitious growth plans to the unexpected, sometimes jarring impacts of global events on flight paths. And we're going to unpack the most important nuggets of knowledge for you. Think of this as your personal briefing on some truly significant developments happening right now.
A lot to cover.
Okay, let's unpack this.
It's a landscape where, the smallest local incident can ripple across continents. And just as easily, decades-long strategic plans can shift almost overnight. Aviation really is a microcosm of global dynamics.
It really is. It's a sector that just never stands still. And to kick things off, we're heading to Southeast Asia. There's a major player there, the owner of a very well-known low-cost carrier.
Yes.
They've been making some incredibly significant strategic moves. What's the fundamental shift happening there right now?
Well, the absolute top priority for this airline's owner is completing a massive business restructuring.
Okay.
You see, they've been operating under something called Practice Note 17, or PN17 status.
Right, PN17. I've heard of that.
Yeah, for those maybe not familiar, that's a designation a stock exchange uses for companies it thinks are financially distressed.
So serious stuff.
Definitely. Imagine being under intense regulatory scrutiny, unable to fully operate or raise capital freely. So successfully exiting that status isn't just a financial formality. It's really a declaration of stability, a return to full operational freedom.
That sounds like clearing a huge hurdle. So once that's behind them, what does their roadmap look like? I mean, for the immediate future, are we talking a cautious return or something maybe more ambitious?
Oh, it's far more ambitious than cautious. Much more. The CEO has been quite explicit about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yet once the restructuring is complete, they anticipate placing significant new aircraft orders, probably within the next 1 to 3 months.
Wow, that quick.
Apparently so. This isn't just about picking up where they left off. It's signaling really aggressive expansion.
Okay, and what kind of aircraft are we talking about? We've seen a lot of airlines recently making very specific choices about their fleets, haven't we?
Indeed. And they seem to be following that trend. We're looking at potentially 2 separate orders.
Okay.
The first is expected to be for 50 to 70 A321neo aircraft.
The Neos, right? Workhorses.
Exactly. High-capacity, single-aisle jets, perfect for a low-cost carrier model, lets them maximize passenger numbers on those popular high-density routes. Think of it as a strategic choice to really dominate those key corridors.
Yeah, makes sense. And the second order, are they looking to diversify their fleet capabilities then?
Precisely. The second order is for around 100 regional jets.
100? That's quite a few.
It is. They're reportedly weighing their options between the Airbus A220s and the Embraer E2s. But there is reported leaning towards the Airbus regional jets.
Interesting. Why regional jets?
Well, these aircraft are critical for opening up new, smaller markets or maybe increasing frequency on routes that don't demand the full capacity of, say, an A321. It shows a strategy of both densifying existing networks and expanding into new, maybe underserved territories.
That's a huge commitment, though, especially when you think about their existing fleet and what they already have on the books. What's their current baseline look like?
Well, currently they're an all-Airbus operator. They've got 109 aircraft in the fleet right now.
Okay.
But what's truly astonishing is their existing order book. A staggering 367 aircraft.
367, goodness.
Yeah, that includes 331 A321-200NX and another 36 A321-200NXLR, the long-range version.
Oh.
And it's important to understand, these orders largely predate the pandemic.
Ah, right. So they were already planning big.
They were. And for several years, they actually paused deliveries because of the global slowdown, like many did.
Yeah.
But starting in 2024, those deliveries restarted. So the CEO isn't just talking about recovery. They flat out declare they're firmly in a growth stage.
So we're seeing an airline that's not just, recovering from this distressed status, but actively planning to become a much, much larger player. That's a real statement of confidence in their post-PN17 future.
It absolutely is. It's a high-stakes bet on market rebound and their own operational efficiency. I mean, to be in PN17 status and then declare such aggressive expansion, it signals extraordinary conviction in their business model.
Right.
And a clear path, they must believe, to generating the revenue needed to support such a massive fleet. It also, it speaks to the long lead times involved in Aircraft procurement, you have to plan years in advance, even through difficult periods.
That's a really crucial distinction. Now, while that airline is restructuring its way back to aggressive growth, there's a completely different but equally compelling financial play unfolding, this time with a carrier in Vietnam,
Okay.
a
Oh.
massive capital injection. What makes this particular move so significant, especially when you consider some of their recent challenges?
Yeah, what's fascinating here is the sheer scale and maybe more importantly, the timing. This Vietnamese carrier recently secured an impressive $191 million dollars
$191 million. Okay.
from two large shareholders. On June 12th, 2025, two entities, Aviation Joint Stock Company, which used to be Sovico Aviation JSC and Dynamic and Development Investment JSC, they each acquired 25 million shares.
And this wasn't just routine fundraising.
No, it feels like a targeted infusion. Very specific purpose.
And what is that immediate purpose? Is it for new expansion or more about shoring up, existing liabilities?
Primarily, these funds are earmarked specifically to repay outstanding loans.
Ah, okay. Debt repayment.
Exactly. And this is critical because, as you alluded to, this capital raise comes right on the heels of a significant financial blow.
Right.
The shares themselves were sold at 100,000 Vietnamese dong per share, which is
Wow.
about USD 3.82, and both buyers have agreed to hold these shares for at least 12 months.
Which signals commitment, maybe?
Yeah, it signals a commitment beyond just a quick flip or profit.
You mentioned it a significant blow just now. We're talking about that recent UK High Court ruling, aren't we?
We are.
The one that hit this airline with that staggering $181 million damages penalty
Yeah.
stemming from an aircraft lease dispute.
That's the one.
A sum they publicly stated they couldn't afford to pay at the time. That's quite a contrast.
Precisely. That's the real tension here, isn't it? You have an airline that just received this massive court order for damages, one they initially said would be crippling,
Mm-hmm.
and then almost immediately they secure this huge capital injection specifically for loan repayment. It raises a fascinating question about investor confidence.
Like, what are the investors thinking?
Exactly. Are these shareholders seeing a clear path for this airline to grow out of its liabilities? Or are they effectively, doubling down on a risky, maybe debt-fueled expansion strategy? This isn't just balancing books. It's a high-stakes gamble on whether the aggressive growth can outrun the liabilities.
So on one hand, a major financial liability from the court case, and on the other, this huge vote of confidence, it seems, from investors providing cash. How does this fit into their broader expansion plans? Are they still pushing forward?
Oh, absolutely. It connects directly to it. Despite that significant legal setback,
Yeah.
this airline has an incredibly aggressive expansion strategy already in motion.
Really? Even with that hanging over them?
Yes. Their current aircraft order book is immense, 336 aircraft.
336. That's almost as big as the other one's existing order book.
It is. We're talking about 76 A321-200Ns, 20 A321-200 NYXLR, the extra long-range ones, 40, 20, 30, 900Ns, 100 B737-8s, and 100 B737-8-200s, the high-density MAX.
Wow. A mixed fleet, too. Airbus and Boeing.
Very mixed. And just to underscore their intent, they recently signed a Memorandum of Understanding, an MOU.
Right, an OU, so not quite a firm order yet, but close.
Exactly. For those unfamiliar, it's essentially a preliminary, non-binding agreement. But it's a strong signal of intent, often used to secure production slots and show commitment before a firm order is placed.
Okay. And this MOU is for?
An additional 100 A321neo with options for a further 50.
So potentially another 150 planes on top of the 336 already ordered. Even with substantial financial pressures, they're committed to explosive growth.
You'd seem so.
It's a very dynamic interplay, isn't it, between ambitious expansion and managing these substantial financial obligations. It almost feels like they're, I don't know, building the plane while flying it through some serious turbulence.
That's an excellent analogy. It really shows a strategic decision to just push forward, leveraging investor belief in their long-term vision, even as they navigate these very real, immediate financial hurdles. It's probably a reflection of the intense competition in their market and the belief that scale is crucial for survival and profitability in the long run.
Right. It's that constant tightrope walk between growth and solvency that defines so much of the airline industry. Okay, let's shift gears completely now to a different kind of challenge, one that reminds us how incredibly susceptible aviation is to forces far, far beyond any boardroom.
External shocks.
Exactly. We're talking about how geopolitical events are directly impacting aviation operations, specifically a recent situation involving carriers from Israel.
Yes, this truly underscores the fragility of global air travel networks. The immediate cause was the renewed closure of Israeli airspace on June 22nd, 2025.
Okay, renewed closure.
Yes, and this followed a series of U.S. airstrikes on Iran. But this wasn't an isolated incident. There's been a concerning pattern recently.
Right, things have been tense there.
Very. Israeli airlines had initially suspended all flight operations back on June 13th after Israel attacked Iran, which then prompted retaliatory attacks from Tehran.
Okay.
Limited rescue flights had only just resumed on June 18th, offering a brief respite, maybe a glimmer of hope, only to be interrupted again by this latest renewed closure. It's incredibly stop-start.
So what does this mean for passengers and airlines right there on the ground? How are Israeli carriers, and we're talking the flag carrier Israir, Arkia Israeli Airlines, Air Haifa, how are they responding to this ongoing, incredibly unpredictable situation?
Well, they're primarily responding with what they call rescue charters.
Rescue charters. Okay.
These aren't your typical scheduled flights. They're more ad hoc operations designed to repatriate citizens or maybe get essential personnel out.
Right, emergency basis.
Exactly. For the flag carrier specifically, they restarted these on June 23rd, but with severe limitations. They have a strict cap of only 50 passengers per departure.
50. That's tiny for an international flight.
It is. If you think about it, that's barely filling a small regional jet, let alone a typical international airliner like a 777 or A330. It highlights the difficulty.
And what destinations are they actually able to reach, given airspace restrictions and presumably the need for safe corridors?
They're heading to a selection of international spots. Larnaca in Cyprus, Athens, Rome, Fiumicino, London Heathrow, New York JFK, Los Angeles International, and Bangkok Suvarnabhumi.
So a mix of regional and long haul, but limited.
Very limited network.
Yeah.
And potential passengers have to register, but given the extremely tight capacity, seats aren't guaranteed at all.
Who gets priority?
Priority is being given to those who had previously canceled tickets from the earlier suspension and also emergency cases. It really highlights the humanitarian aspect of these particular flights. It's an extraordinary measure, really, demonstrating the lengths airlines will go to, even under extreme duress.
That's such a stark illustration of adapting operations under almost unimaginable pressure. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, how do these seemingly localized events airspace closures in one country have such wide-ranging impacts on global air travel?
Exactly. That's the key point. This uncertainty and the severe operational complications haven't just affected flights to Israel. They've prompted multiple international airlines to suspend flights not just there, but also to other regional destinations.
Which ones?
Places perceived to be at risk, or maybe just experiencing spillover effects from the heightened tensions. Over that weekend of June 20th to 22nd, we saw multiple international carriers canceling flights to major hubs like Dubai International, Abu Dhabi International, and Doha Hamad International.
Wow, so major connecting hubs were affected too.
Absolutely. And the worrying part is further short notice cancellations are still possible, depending entirely on how the situation evolves moment to moment.
So what we're really saying is that even if a specific country's airspace isn't directly involved in a conflict, just the proximity, the perception of risk, and maybe the complexities of air traffic control in a tense region can shut down entire corridors of global travel.
That's exactly right. It dramatically reroutes flight paths, which increases flight times, burns significantly more fuel, creates massive scheduling headaches for airlines and passengers alike.
And the cost.
Huge costs. But perhaps more importantly, it injects a level of unpredictable risk that few other industries, maybe outside of shipping or insurance, have to contend with quite so directly. The core insight here is how quickly these geopolitical tensions can just ripple outwards, affecting entire regions and global networks far beyond the immediate conflict zone. It causes this cascading effect on passenger confidence and, ultimately, airline profitability.
So what does this all mean then? We've covered a lot of ground today, from, internal business strategies and these audacious growth plans to the chilling immediate impact of external geopolitical shocks. How does it all tie together?
Well, I think what it all synthesizes into is a really clear, compelling picture. We've seen how airlines are intensely focused on their internal financial health and achieving ambitious growth.
Right.
Whether that's through complex, years-long business restructuring like we saw in Southeast Asia, or securing significant capital raises and placing massive new aircraft orders that commit them for decades, like in Vietnam.
Okay, the internal focus.
But then simultaneously, the aviation industry remains incredibly perhaps uniquely susceptible to external, often unpredictable geopolitical events. Events that can instantly disrupt operations and networks globally, costing millions and stranding thousands, as we saw with the Israeli airspace closures.
It fundamentally reinforces that understanding aviation isn't just about the planes and the routes they fly, is it?
Not at all. It's also about the complex financial maneuvers underpinning those fleet decisions. It's about the intricate global web of geopolitics, and it's about this relentless pursuit of resilience that really defines the sector. It's this constant balancing act between careful, long-term planning and immediate, often crisis-level adaptation.
Precisely. It's an industry that demands incredible foresight, but also needs rapid, decisive action in the face of the completely unforeseen.
No put.
So, for you, our listener, maybe consider this. In an industry so deeply intertwined with global events and these massive long-term capital expenditures, how do airlines truly factor in the unpredictable? I mean, how do they plan for the unplannable?
It's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. And what does it take for them to not just survive these shocks, but to continue charting new courses, planning that growth, when the very sky they operate in can close at a moment's notice? It truly highlights the constant, often heroic need for adaptability and resilience in a sector that's always soaring, but also always navigating unseen turbulence.